161st Street, Yankee Stadium.
Swung on and hit him there. The deep center. Gets back, away back. She is gone.
All right, welcome on back to the Boys of 161st Street, episode 230. Today is September 26th, and the Yankees have 10 games remaining on the schedule. I point that number out more so to say Judge has 10 games left to get to the record, because that's all anybody gives a shit about. It's actually getting crazy. People getting a little stir crazy at the stadium. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the clips, but that one guy who dumped ketchup on himself, not sure if that's what I would do. That's not to each their own. However you want to cope with Judge going like not having a home run for, I think it's 4 games in a row now, 5 games in a row. It's like the most in a while. But yeah, that, and I'm not sure if you also saw the other video of the guy texting his friend, and he was I thought that one was funnier. The other guy was just weird for pouring. Like he had to probably pump that ketchup at the ketchup station for a while to get that much ketchup in that container. But the other guy who shot the text to his buddy while he was sitting there, he's like, "Hey, Judge," and for those who didn't see it, he's like, "Hey, Judge is on deck, I'm about to shit my pants, but Judge is on deck." So, 10 games left. Yankees just sweep the Red Sox. But honestly, nobody. I think it matters. The games do matter, and we are now tonight. If we win the game against the Blue Jays, we will clinch the AL East and get a home game in the ALDS if we get there, or which we will be there. But and a first round bye. But honestly, it doesn't really even feel like the games matter. Maybe that's because we're winning, but everybody's just looking at whether Judge can do it. How you guys doing?
We went on like a low key 7-game win streak, which I just realized. And I feel like I haven't even been paying attention to us winning, so I just keep watching Judge at bats.
Yeah, I think before we went on the air, we were chatting about that. And I think that's why I was shocked that you guys said it was a 7-game win streak, because I haven't really been paying attention to that as much as I would otherwise. All I know is Judge is still at 60 home runs, and that's kind of like been the main thing that we've been looking at, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's, I don't know about you guys, but I've been watching the at bats with Judge, and I feel so sorry for these fucking pitchers. What do you especially at Yankee Stadium? Everyone just wants you to give up a home run, and you don't want to throw a strike, and then you walk the guy, and then you get booed, and it's just no good situation for any pitcher who's pitching to him at home.
Well, good for Bello for going after him last night. He had a base open and a reasonable situation to walk him, and he didn't intentionally walk him. So
that kid looked pretty good, honestly. He's
very good.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it since it was raining, and that game got cut short in the 6th inning because of rain out. I really wanted them to keep going because I feel like that benefited Judge a ton, because obviously you can catch a ball that slips out of Bello's hands or something like that, or whoever the pitcher was at the time, and just catch more. You have more of an opportunity for a mistake. Is my take on that. I was thinking that there was an advantage Judge there, but they obviously called the game because it was raining pretty hard. And honestly, that
track was underwater, but
that too. But that they didn't want to call that game for a number of reasons. They don't want to.
They would have called that game
way earlier,
10, 15 minutes into the rain out if Judge wasn't going for 60.
And as somebody who lives in the area, it was pouring. So I don't blame them for calling the game. I just hope that it doesn't come down to him needing 3 more innings in the back end of the year, and which could totally happen. He hasn't had a stretch that far that hasn't been less than 9 home runs on this season, but there's a world where he doesn't get 2 more home runs, and I don't want to be a part of that world. But what's your guys' level of concern with that? Because when is that going to set in? Because right now, 10 games left, it's a little bit of a cushion.
He's not trying to hit home runs. He'll be fine. He's doing what he's been doing all year. He's gone through spells of 5 games multiple times this year. It happens. He's still hitting doubles. He's still putting the ball in play. He's going to fall into a home run.
Yeah, I think being on the road helps, because at Yankee Stadium, everybody's dead fucking silent every pitch. So
yeah, I was actually thinking about that too. It's I experienced that, and it was actually dead silent there. that definitely does not help him. Like, you try to block out the noise and all the cheers and everything like that, but you get into such a rhythm of dealing with the loud noises while you're up to the point now where he has dead silence. It's like a tennis match or a golf match, and it's just like, well, it just throws you off out of your rhythm. So I don't know. I thought that was actually an interesting point. I thought about that, Chandler.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually didn't even notice that at all. Like, I don't know why.
Notice
why
what?
that thing, it was silent. Like, I didn't.
Just
like,
because it's like everybody wasn't having their side conversations because they were all focused on that. That's just what it is. It's not them trying to be like, oh, man at work, like try to be quiet. Like, it's just.
I mean, if this is where he is when he's off and not feeling comfortable, that's still pretty fucking good. He's hitting like 2 doubles a night. So
yeah, I mean,
Right.
yes.
I mean, he's
I'm
got
just
like
saying,
an 860 OPS during his homerless streak. I think one thing that's worth noting is that during this quiet 7-game winning streak, while everybody's kind of been focused on Judge, there's been like our bullpen has been fucking bad. Like we're 22nd in Major League Baseball in bullpen ERA, which I know the bullpen ERA is not everything, but you shouldn't be 22nd.
And we were first after July.
Yeah, so I mean,
So that's a
this is
pretty
over
fall.
the last 10 games, not
okay.
total over the year, but over the last 10 games, while we've been winning and everybody's been focused on Judge and focused on trying to get the AL East and like, oh, we have this important stretch of games, their bullpen has been quietly blowing these leads every single night. Like, I think we blew the lead against the Red Sox 3 of those 4 games or something like that, and we blew a couple leads against the Pirates. It's a nightly occurrence where they're blowing it or they're coming damn close to it, and that is a problem. And to further that, we don't have a closer. Like, I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago that we thought when Efros came back and maybe Clay Holmes would solidify himself after being on the IL. He's been just bad. Like, there's no way around it. So there are still some weaknesses. Obviously, everything's kind of sunshine and roses right now, but under the hood, there are problems going to October.
Well, there's talk of Chapman even getting DFA'd, so I don't know if that's really actually going to happen, but there goes that option. And if he even was an option to begin with, like, yeah, that's going to be a big problem.
Well,
I mean, Britain was fucking terrible, which we all expected. So, I mean,
well, we expected that, but it's another thing to actually have it happen. And now, like, if that ever was an option, it's not anymore. So that's another one that bites the dust there. But I mean, he's probably still. Do you think that changes anything with him making the playoff roster? Britain, that is.
Britain, absolutely. I mean, I think if he comes out and does the same thing again, he's fucked.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
more
not really
on
a whole lot
that.
of time left.
Yeah, more on that, and the rest of the 10 games will be. Hopefully, we'll see something out of somebody who could be that guy to close in the bullpen. I mean, we're gonna be doing just play the hot hand, and hopefully somebody has a hot hand at the time, or using starters as relievers. Like for example, a little more on this, and once we get to hot or not. But Frankie Montas is. Boone mentioned that it would be tough time-wise to get Frankie Montas back into playoff rotation. He suggested an opener/relief role. So, I'm not suggesting that he would be the closer, but I'm suggesting that he would be another guy that could probably be a relief arm, since the relievers have been so bad over the last 10 games or so, like you mentioned, Chandler. But yeah, definitely a problem. The Chapman stuff, I'm not sure if I believe it, but the fact that they're even talking about it is just like kind of a nail in the coffin on the career or Yankee career for Aroldis Chapman. I feel like it's just he's just not. He hasn't been able to figure it out, and I don't know. I don't have any confidence in him, so I don't see him getting any more like high leverage opportunities. I mean, if we always said that the only reason why Chapman got run is because the Yankees believe in him. Sometimes it was false belief, but they believed in him nonetheless. And the fact that they're even thinking about DFAing him kind of shows their hand as to how they feel about him now. So he's not going to get any high leverage spots anytime soon. So that's my takeaway from that report from Joel Sherman, that they apparently are contemplating DFAing him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking good. I have a feeling that, like, I don't know if there's enough time at all. I mean, there's 10 games left. That's not enough time to have a closer come out and improve himself and emerge from the bullpen. Like, it's a shitty thing. We talked about this like a month ago. This might happen. Is that we're really just gonna like go out there, and if we're in a closing situation, we're just gonna ride with whoever's available and we have confidence in. And it's probably gonna be a different person each night, and there's no way around that. Yeah, there's no way that we can just like throw some out there consistently right now. The way the team's playing, so we just gotta score a fuck ton of runs.
Yeah. So, I mean, the offense has been pretty good lately, and more on that in hot or not. Do you guys want to get into hot or not now, and then just have those conversations? Because we're kind of bleeding into that already. So, who wants to do the hots and who wants to do the nots?
I'm feeling hot.
All right. So, Damon has got the hots. All right, so leading off for the hots, we got Gleyber Torres. Over the last 30 days, 23 games played, 6 home runs, 20 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, excuse me. Are you going to...
Sorry, I was waiting for you to finish.
That was it.
Okay. I'm buying that.
Oswald Peraza, not Cabrera. Oswald and Oswaldo, spoiler alert, is on this as well. But his numbers in his last 30 days are great, but his numbers in the last 7 are even better. But in the last 30 days, 12 games played, only a 16% strikeout rate, which is lower than everybody else in the team, 296 batting average, 142 WRC plus, and 5 extra base hits.
Buying that as well.
Oswaldo Cabrera, last 13 look even better than this as well, but his last 30, 25 games played, 4 home runs, and a 2.7 defensive WAR to pair that with a 9 extra base hits in that time frame.
Buying that too.
And finally, Nestor Cortes, since July 14th, no other pitcher has a lower ERA than Nestor Cortes is a 2.31 ERA.
Hell yeah, buying it, buying everybody.
So the main storyline here with all these guys that we picked for the hots is, you know, finally there's a little bit of a supporting cast here, and you're seeing that in a 7-game win streak. So obviously I didn't mention Judge, but one thing that I will mention on here, if I picked him for every hot or not, he would be on the list. He'd be the first in the list. But one funny thing that, like, I could easily have mentioned that he has 11 home runs over this time frame. He has 19 extra base hits, leads the league in everything. But one thing that was very funny that I saw on TikTok was Judge's WAR is 10.7 at the time when I saw the TikTok, at least. That's more than the following offenses for the entire year: the Angels, the Marlins, the Royals, the Rockies, the Nationals, the Reds, the Athletics, the Pirates, and the Tigers. Not combined, but that if that was combined, that'd be the most crazy stat on the planet. But I still think that's pretty dang close. But yeah, that's wild. But the main takeaway here is I'm glad that there are this many people to choose from, so much so that when I was making this list, it was kind of hard to not pick some people. Like Rizzo is kind of been doing his thing for a little bit. Even Kiner Falefa and Donaldson stat wise are looking better than, like, they weren't like jump off the page bad. So that's a good sign when those guys are doing that. One thing that I wanted to mention as an honorable mention is that Bader obviously had only 6 games so far, and his stats don't jump off the page as amazing. But one thing that I really liked that I think he provides for this team is what he did, I think it was last night, when he got on base, stole second, immediately took third on the overthrow or something like that. And then the very next pitch, Jose Trevino knocks him in on a single. Like that's the ripple that he brings to this team. And that's why I'm pumped that we got him in a trade. And I guess we could revisit that conversation. Is like, it's a little too early to tell considering he's only played 6 games, but now recently Montgomery hasn't been pitching too well. He's given up 14 earned runs over his last couple. So, I mean, the jury's still out on that, but I do see the benefits, and I know I'll pass it to Chandler on that. But I think Bader, I want to ask you, because I was always higher on Bader. Do you see the benefit of having Bader, and how do you feel about Bader right now?
I never was anti-Bader. I just didn't I thought people were blowing it way out of proportion. Like, obviously we know Montgomery isn't a 0.5 ERA pitcher, and people were acting like Bader was going to just come in and save the franchise. That I wasn't on board with, and I'm still not on board with, but he's done everything that you could ask of him so far, to this point. He provides defense and base running and speed, and he hits the ball and puts it in play, and that's just shit that we were lacking before he provides a spark. You were talking about earlier in the season when we were slumping, we need a spark. We need a spark. Maybe it's Peraza, maybe it's Cabrera, whatever it may be. I mean, I would argue that Cabrera's had a major, major impact and has been probably the spark. But if you're looking for a 1B, I mean, Harrison Bader's done everything you could ask of him. I'm absolutely happy. But I mean, at the end of the day, Montgomery probably wouldn't start a playoff game as it sits right now. If he did, it would be a throwaway game. Not a throwaway game at the playoffs, but you know what I mean. A game 4 where there's no win or go home implications. So at this point, I'm cool with it. I wasn't anti it other than when I didn't think Harrison Bader was coming back.
Right, and the biggest takeaway here, I guess, on top of that, is that he looks pretty healthy, knock on wood. But he's running well. They mic'd him up in the Sunday night game, and he's kind of cool. So that plays pretty well too. He seems like he's meshed well with the locker room, and he seems like just a fun guy. So he almost seems like the Rizzo type guy. I could see him and Rizzo being a very, very good friends. There's going to be a new trio. It's going to be Judge, Rizzo, and now Bader is going to be in that friend group. I can already tell.
I was about to say there's a very small sample size, but he seems like a big locker room guy.
Absolutely, Murph.
Like
He does.
he confirmed locker room guy, Murph.
Okay, yeah. we had to check with the resident locker room litmus test over here. That's you.
This is a fun guy.
He's just a fun guy. I feelings on the hair policy. It's just a stupid policy. He gets fucked by that because he looks good with the long hair and the
He
beard.
was fine with it. It's part of being in the Yankees.
No, I know.
care.
I'm not saying his feelings towards it. I'm saying from an outside looking in, he looks a lot better with the long hair. Not that he looks bad now, but I think he rocked it.
The only person who has ever had a reasonable gripe with the hair policy is Andrew McCutchen, in my opinion, and the hair and beard, because he actually has like the pedigree. I mean, who else gets pissed off about that? I mean, Clint, Jackson, Frazier, like fuck. Like if that's the reason you think that you're not good, then I got fucking news for you, pal. But I mean, everybody else is pretty much on board, and I mean, even McCutchen was on board until he left, and he was like, "Yeah, it kind of sucked." And I'm like, you know what? You've won
That's when most people
couple
say
MVPs, and you've been there. I respect that.
Yeah, you don't get signed by the Yankees and just be like, "Fuck this hair policy." Like you wait until you're done.
Well, it was funny because he mentioned what happened when he came over to the Yankees, and they didn't. I always wonder, like, do they tell you, like, hey, shave that shit off?
No,
like,
he was
tighten
saying.
it up. I know.
He
That's what I'm
said-
saying. He mentioned that it was like an unwritten, like, everybody knows across the league that this is how it goes, and he just showed up and he didn't want to ruffle any feathers coming in, so he just did it. But I guess less on the hair policy, more on the hot list that we were buying, is that. So to round out, you bought all Gleyber Torres, Oswald Peraza, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Nestor Cortez being hot. I think Gleyber and Nestor, these, I don't think they require that much more of a conversation. I'm more interested in, I think if I had to circle one, because we've talked about Cabrera before and what he provides and what we think his role will be in the playoffs. I think he's done all he needs to do to earn a spot in the lineup in the playoff games. And I think we've had that conversation plenty of times. But Oswald Peraza, in my mind, I mean, the numbers look good, and he's looked so good. He's been getting hits. He's not getting out. He's not striking out a ton. Like, I really like the way he's looked. Do you think that's enough to get? Because he's one of the 5 very productive bats in the lineup right now, at least over the last 30 days, and very much so over the last 14 and 7 games. Do you think he has any role? Or do you think he's done anything to get in?
If you're saying playoffs, God, no. They won't do that.
That's sad because he's looked really good.
Yeah, I mean,
That's fine. He's young.
I hope so, but it's not. Especially with, like, I know we're gonna talk about the injuries and like people coming back. Like, if we have more people coming back, then he's gonna be that guy who's not gonna make it. If we have other guys coming back into the roster.
At this point, you got to take it for what it is. I mean, he's getting a taste of the big leagues. He's getting a taste of big league pitching, and there's going to be a place for him next year.
Yeah.
But barring
Is
any
there?
injuries,
Yeah, do you think
Where
there
do
is?
Where do you
likely.
put him?
That's
Where do
why
you
else
put him?
would they keep him up?
But
I don't think. I think that they
Where
could
do you
put him
put him,
over
though? They're not-
IKF. I mean, if he's your
They're
big
not
guy,
going
and
to.
he next year I think is going to be a different ballgame than this year.
You repeatedly have way too much faith in this front office. You use like logic and stuff, and that just doesn't fly in New York.
Right.
And stuff.
No, there will be a spot for him next year. Otherwise, they're completely wasting bringing him up for this amount of time this year. I think that this was to give him a taste of some pitching, kind of like what they did with Jeter in '95. They brought him up and like he was on the bench throughout the playoffs. He wasn't even on the active roster, but they threw him in the dugout. And, he
Didn't
came
he
up the
play
next
because
year.
the starter got hurt in spring training?
The following year, I think.
That's
yeah,
what I'm saying. Yeah. So, I mean,
I don't
how
even know
much
if that part's
Jeter-esque is
true.
that? It is true. He got hurt at the end of spring training, and Jeter was having a terrible spring.
He was having a terrible spring, right? But I'm just saying, like, it's the goal is to get him up there, and I think that that's why he's still here.
Right. So I think,
But that doesn't mean he's going to be there in the playoffs, and I don't think he's going to sit on the bench in the playoffs either. But
so for those that are going to be here in the playoffs, I think we're probably all on the same page that he's not going to have an impact this postseason. He's obviously helping us get wins right now, and that's huge. But I mean, Cabrera in his last 13, I mentioned the last 30 games, but his last 13, he's got a 1.1 OPS, 4 home runs, 8 extra base hits. Does anybody have any objections to him being the left fielder?
I think he should be.
No, yeah, he should.
I don't think anybody was going to
Benintendi's
disagree
going to be
with that.
back, supposedly. So
When?
that's where things get hairy.
It does
Well,
get
he's getting
dicey there.
He's getting his
Benintendi comes-
stitches out this week. So, and
Well,
they
we
said
talked
if
about
he
this
comes
last
back,
week,
then
but-
his position. So,
And it
well, we
is,
had a
but if he
positive.
comes-
Well, I know, but we had news since last week. It came out today that his stitches were coming out Wednesday, and everything's
missed that.
progressing perfect for him. So that's why I bring it up, is because if he's back, he's your left fielder, and I think you still need to find a way to put Cabrera in the lineup, but they're not going to, and that sucks because he's provided so much.
I think if that's the case, then Cabrera is the first guy off the bench at just about any given position that's not pitcher and catcher.
So I mentioned those
Which is fine.
offensive
You're gonna need
numbers.
that
So
too.
offensively, he needs to be worked in. We know that. Will they do it is always the question. But even defensively, like I mentioned while we were actually doing the segment, he has a 2.7 defensive WAR over the last 30 days. Like that's double anybody else on the team outside of Jose Trevino. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying
but
from
think
our
of
perspective.
October and how many log jams there's going to be anyway. And it's fair to ask what they're going to do versus what they should do, because you're going to have Carpenter back. Him and Benintendi are both supposed to be coming back. DJ's supposed to be coming back. I mean, then you have Cabrera, that's an odd man out. You have these different things. Like, where do you work in Matt Carpenter? I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to make the right decisions. That makes me nervous because I think they have the pieces to have a productive offense. It's just a matter of using them and knowing when to use them, which they should be able to do at that level. But do you really have faith in them to do it? I don't.
No, and my fear is that he's going to be, like you said, the odd man out because, I mean, and it's also, it's tough for me. Like, we know what the Yankees will do and what we want to do. What I want to do is conflicting because I want Carpenter in, I want Benintendi in, and they probably will get more run than he will, and he's young, and they'll always default to saying he's the young guy. Like you said, Murph, about Peraza. He got some fun times in the majors. He has a bright future ahead of him, that kind of thing. But I have a fear that if he gets any run in the playoffs, he will be not getting obvious consistent at bats, and he might be very bad in those spots because he's good because he's getting consistent at bats now, and a young player like that just getting, I mean, look what happened to Miguel Andujar, RIP. Like, he didn't get everyday at bats for basically his whole Yankee career outside of his first year, and now he just got DFA and he's on the Pirates. So
yeah, but even if that does happen, like, he's still a defensive asset on the bench. Like, that's like the ideal guy you want on a bench. In the
he will
playoffs.
be the defensive replacement if but for who?
Don't be surprised if they pull something that's kind of like a platoon lineup. If they change it every night, like DJ's toe's not 100%, so they're going to start him at third, or they're going to I feel like they're going to work different guys in and out. I don't know how I feel about it, but that's the only way to actually get them the run, I guess. Like, how else do you work them in without hurting feelings, which is their biggest concern? Like, they don't want to hurt IKF or Donaldson's feelings, so they're not going to bench them, but I feel like they're going to work people in. They have to. You have to, right?
So do you think he's going to be the guy that they work in, similar to how we were talking about DJ at the beginning of the season? How DJ was going to be that guy who he might get some start, and he did, and he might get some first base, third base, second base, and you just work him around. Now, I feel like almost DJ has that solidified what? I mean, where DJ doesn't have a solidified spot too, so it's even tougher now to make that the Oswaldo Cabrera thing. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, you will, and he adds that extra element of being the outfielder. And Benintendi coming back off injury, is he going to start every night? Maybe not, because what you said, Damon, too, about him being the defensive replacement. Every other starter in the lineup that he would replace is a good defensive player. So I don't. Like, he's not going to sub out Donaldson. Donaldson plays fine defense. He's not going to sub out.
He'd sub out IKF.
IKF is the only one. I was looking at the list. Like, he's not going to sub out Benintendi other than injury / rest. But if you're starting him and it's a playoff game, you're not going to rest somebody. Like, he's just the only person you could circle as him replacing is IKF, and that's it.
I think they would do Glaber if Glaber was playing second.
But Glaber's bat has been so good that you don't want to do that.
You're talking about defensive replacement,
but that takes the bat out of the lineup effectively, and if it goes to extra innings and stuff like that's what I mean. Like, you don't want to take out that'd be like pinch running for Stanton, and then you lose the bat for the rest of the game. It's like that. You don't want to do that when Glaber's been mashing the ball like he has been.
I'm just throwing the suggestions out there because I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a different lineup every night. What's going to happen is if they do have one lineup that works, and in all actuality, Cabrera's not going to play in the playoffs if these guys are healthy, and we all know that, which is kind of sad. I think it's kind of us trying to rationalize it, but that's the only way that makes sense. Because I mean, even then, like we were talking about with DJ, where does he fit in? Like I would have him at third, and I'd have Donaldson on the bench personally. But do they do that? I don't know. Like I think that's more of a legit question than Cabrera.
It is, but here's what Cabrera offers, and it's just as valuable to the sake of a playoff team. Is he can come off the bench in a number of ways. He can go as a defensive replacement in any given position, or even better than that, if you're in the 6th, 7th. Definitely at least the 8th inning, and you have anybody on first base, he's fast enough to go as a pinch runner, and whatever position that guy was playing, he can go ahead and play that position the rest of the game. And God forbid he gets up again, he's got a decent enough bat, and he's a switch hitter. So, you're confident pinch running him at pretty much any inning reasonably, and he's going to play that position defensively. He's going to pinch run effectively, and then if he gets an at bat, then he's going to make the most of it. Well, so that's a very valuable piece in the playoffs, whether he's in the starting lineup or not.
Yeah, well, also Aaron Boone is going to find a way to, if he's on the roster, like he's going to find a way to work him in a lefty-righty situation because he has that switch hitting ability. And then because his defense is so good, that makes that decision easier because he'll be like, oh, all right, I have no problem putting him anywhere in the field and giving him his at bat because lefty-righty situation. Like I could totally see that happen, but again, that goes back to Luke's point about, all right, is he getting enough reps to this to actually like be worth the switch? So,
and that may not happen. I'm just saying with young players, they don't necessarily end up. He's not going to put up these same numbers, and that's just with anybody. What young players, old players aside, anybody who gets inconsistent at bats is not going to be as good as they were when they're getting consistent run.
But if Matt Carpenter's playing first and he hits a double in the 6th inning, and he can't run, you're gonna pull him. You're gonna put Cabrera there, and then you're gonna let Cabrera.
Well, Carpenter
play
would never play.
He's just one example of somebody that it would make sense to pinch run, and if they're in scoring position, then it matters because Stanton's a DH. So, but even Stanton, even if it is a DH, same thing. I don't know.
It wouldn't shock me totally if Benintendi wasn't 100% healthy and they kind of reversed roles. Like Benintendi was kind of the role player because you don't want to re-aggravate that wrist, and he is fast as shit. So you need a pinch runner. There's Benintendi. You need somebody that can kind of weather the storm. He's still in pain, but you need somebody to get on base. You need somebody to, put the ball in play. There's Benintendi. If he's not fully healthy and he's not actually 100%, I think that you have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all speculation. This whole conversation's, this whole conversation's probably for nothing, but I mean, it's really an interesting question because what the fuck are they going to do in October? I'm like, right now they're rolling out a consistent lineup that's working, and I don't want to change that, but they're going to, and you're going to have to because you can't justify benching some of these people. Like if DJ's healthy and he's producing, like he's been one of the best hitters in baseball for fucking years, 4, 5, 6 years now. So what do you do? It just, I don't know. Like right now, I'm totally happy with the lineup minus Donaldson and IKF, but even them, they're hitting right now. They're producing at least to their standards. So like, I don't know.
It's interesting to see what's going to happen. It's obviously, it's going to be. I hope it's not a piecemeal lineup every day, like a new one each day, because that never works in my mind. You may show me a different scenario where it has worked, but I've never seen it be. It just doesn't make sense. It's just not going to work. But it's probably going to be what happens, or the young guys are just not going to get their playing time, which is just how it's going to go. Unfortunate for Cabrera Peraza, but that's just going to be the way it goes. More on Nestor. Like I said, since July 14th, no other pitcher has a lower ERA than him. That's every pitcher in the league. McClanahan, Ohtani, all these great pitchers that are throwing very well. Nestor Cortes has been like consistently, silently dominant as he's always been for the last 2 years. Question that Chandler brought up: who do you think finishes higher in Cy Young voting, Nestor Cortes or the seemingly easy to hit a home run off of Garrett Cole? Not seemingly, he leads the league in home runs allowed. I think it's like 30 something now. But
he might break the Yankee record for most home runs given up, actually.
It just makes no sense to me because, like, how do you lead the entire league in strikeouts, but you're by design, the strikeout is a pitcher who can get a lot by you and you're hard to barrel up and you miss a lot of bats. But you're also the easiest to barrel up and hit home runs against. Like,
it's because he overthinks
It's because
he
misses.
overthinks his pitch mix, and when he does, like, he'll just hang a slider because he feels like he needs
he misses
that. Whenever you see him sit there and stick with his fastball and locate his fastball and just feel confident in that pitch, he dominates. Like the game he had, I think it was 3 starts ago. It was 3 starts ago. He had like 13 or 14 Ks, went like 6 or 7 innings. He was throwing like 70% fastballs. That's when Garrett Cole's good, is when he simplifies things, goes and attacks hitters, doesn't get cute, doesn't walk people. If he gives up a home run, it's a solo shot. So what? You got beat on a fastball. When he's dancing around on the corners, trying to throw in his cutter, throwing his slider, throwing his knuckle curve. I was listening to David Cohn talk about it too. He's like, the slider looks like a fastball and you can fool people on that. The knuckle curve, you can fool people once per at bat, maybe. And when he's struggling, he's trying to work it in there too much. To me, it's him just overthinking and trying to,
he's trying to be cute with it.
He is trying to be cute with it when he's got one of the most dominant fastballs in the game. So I don't know.
And that's what happens. That's why he's getting barreled, is once like you're saying, he's trying to work that slider in there, and then you can only throw a slider so many times and have it when you're that kind of pitcher, and eventually you're going to leave one out there, and that's what happens. Whereas a sinker baller who throws a slider, it's supposed to be the weak contact, and you're not supposed to get the strikeouts the same way. But he's blowing it by you with the fastball, and then when he does throw that slider in there and it spins, and that's what happens. It kind of does make sense, and it's just he's struggling.
Yeah.
But if any, I don't think either of them are going to get serious Cy Young votes. But
no, I'm saying who finishes higher.
Nestor. Nestor, I guess. I don't, they're both not even going to be top 5. Probably.
See, here's the thing.
They'll both finish top 10 though.
I think
maybe.
I think Nestor deserves more, but Garrett Cole will get more because he's Garrett Cole.
I agree.
And people are
in the strikeouts and
leading the league in
strikeouts. When he
strikeouts.
well.
Yeah, like
Nestor doesn't lead anything. He just crushes.
Yeah, but he's been our best pitcher consistently this whole year. But Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole. He's the big name. He's the big contract. People know him. It's like,
I mean, Nestor Cortes has 4 WAR and Garrett Cole has 2.5.
Yeah, but
Garrett Cole 3.49
ERA.
ERA. Nestor Cortes 2.56 ERA.
Isn't that like the 5th lowest or by a Yankee through 27 starts or something ridiculous like that?
The 2.56.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the top 5. It's like he's having one of the most dominant Yankee pitching seasons of all time. It's crazy.
I mean, outside of Garrett Cole coming to the Yankees, we haven't really had dominant pitchers outside of CC Sabathia. So like that makes total sense. I could see it. The obvious thing that is glaring is that Cole has 244 strikeouts versus Nestor's 151, but every other statistic, Nestor is better than Cole, and even outside of wins, but it's 11 wins to 12 wins, and Nestor has less losses. I don't know. Interesting. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna finish within the top 5, but I also think Nestor might finish higher, which is crazy to say. And do we parlay that into the conversation of, like, I know we've had this a bunch of times, but where do you stand on game 1?
They've already announced Cole's.
You still throw Cole out there.
Yeah, they've already announced Cole, and you have to go Cole.
I know,
mean,
but
you're paying
outside of the what they're going to do, like we have most of the time on this podcast, is in terms of a conversation. But what would you do? Who would you? Who do you?
I mean,
Who do you
Cole.
feel? Not what would you do? Because I think I also would do it just because we paid him so much fucking money. So and he's a good playoff pitcher, so it's time to buck up. But who would you feel more confident in? Because obviously, I think Nestor's going to go game 2 now that Montas is out. He probably should have gone game 2 even if Montas was in. But who would you feel like
Cole.
when you wake up that morning? I'll phrase this question. You wake up that morning, who do you feel more confident in?
Are you trying to phrase it in a way that we're not going to say Cole? Because I think I'm
It's
still
still
going to say
Garrett
It's
Cole.
Cole. It's Cole no matter what. You got to think of the upside in the playoffs. You can't go play to not lose in the playoffs, especially in a game.
Well, I don't think Nestor is playing to not lose. Though. That's what I was trying to phrase that as. Like
you need
I
to
feel
throw the guy out there that's the dominant pitcher that has the playoff pedigree that can go out and give you 7. Nestor Cortez, he can, but who's the guy that's most likely to go out and give you 7-8 innings, preserve the bullpen, and just dominate and really set your team off on the right foot? It's Garrett Cole. And don't get me wrong, Nestor Cortez is having the better year. He's having the better season. I love Nestor Cortez. He is the bona fide game 2 starter, and he's a damn good one. But it's it's Garrett
And
Cole.
if
It's Garrett Cole
you're-
every day of the week. It doesn't
if you're
matter
in the
about the
lineup-
price tag. It doesn't matter about the price tag. If you're paying Garrett Cole $500,000 or you're paying him, $32 million or whatever it is, a guy with that arsenal and that amount of innings and workload that he can throw, when you're comfortable enough to throw a pitcher out there with 120 pitches and start another inning with him, right or wrong, that's your guy.
No, I agree. Who if you're in the lineup, you want them to roll their best guy out there game 1, and guess who it is? It's Garrett Cole.
yeah.
IKF
and
home run. Also,
I know. I
by
was
the way.
about to say that
Sorry.
too. We're recording this on Monday night at 7:30, so it's the early innings of the game tonight. And yeah, that's just
That was
wild.
kind of a bomb.
That was kind of
Yeah,
a bomb.
like that was
kind of a
not. That was
bomb.
kind of a no doubter, honestly.
That was kind of a fucking bomb. Shit.
And going back to the Cole Nestor conversation, when you look at the matchups and what they'll be in the playoffs in terms of matching starters up against people, I am pretty confident in our 1-2 punch right there. Like we have Nestor Cortez and Garrett Cole. It may not seem that way throughout the season when you compare it to other matchups outside of, the obvious ones like the Mets have DeGrom and Scherzer, and you're not going to feel confident going into that when you match the starters up against each other. But I don't feel not confident, and if the bats are moving the way they are now and we get the guys back, we can totally make a run. And we talked about this on the previous episode when we went through round by round of our predictions for the playoffs if they ended today. So if you want to go listen to that, that's the prior episode. But with these guys coming back and the good reports that we're getting, there's no reason why we can't. And I know the announcers and stuff on the
bullpen is why we can't.
Well, that we could figure that out and use starters in a way to get funky with it, with like Frankie Montas and stuff like that. But all this to say, I guess another temperature check after last episode, because 2 weeks ago we were saying this is a dumpster fire and everybody outside of Judge isn't doing anything. I think the best way to put it is the way I think Cohen said it. They're just going to be a tough out in the playoffs, and I think that's the way you put it. We're not going to be like anybody's favorite. Go like the betting, the sharps are not going to take us, but I just think that we're going to be a tough out in the playoffs, which is kind of sad to say when, where we were at the beginning of the season, as just putting it as being a tough out versus like the team that's team to beat type thing. It's a very different narrative, but I think
I prefer it.
Yeah,
I do.
I don't.
I'm sorry.
Considering where we were, I don't, but
I understand that they're different, and I understand that being the team to beat means you're a better team, but I don't. I just like that narrative.
yes,
I don't want to be the
since
team
we
to beat.
started as we were going to break the wins record and all that stuff. How far
Fuck
we
that.
fall
Who
into
cares?
this? That's why I'm not pumped about being the tough out, so to speak, versus the team to beat. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, we're getting hot at the right time, which we talked about a couple months ago. We were like, I mean, I thought this too. Like, yeah, there was like there was a very brief time where we were talking, and I was like, they might not make the playoffs, but we all knew those kind of ridiculous statements to say. And now I'm like, all right, looking back on it, they did have that terrible run, but now they're getting hot again. 7-game win streak, a sneaky 7-game win streak, heading into the playoffs. Hopefully clinch the AL East tonight. Like, it's the right time to happen, and I'm feeling so much better about heading into the playoffs right now. Because if we ended the playoffs, ended the regular season, and like just hung on by a thread and won the AL East by like 2 games, and we barely scraped our way to get through that, and we were losing games, I would be like, this is just let's chalk this up as a loss and let's just go home, because I would not feel good going into the playoffs. But they keep pulling me back in, and I'm feeling good about it.
Want to do the knots?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who wants to do the knots?
I got him.
All right, Murph. 3, 2, 1. Leading off for the knots, we already mentioned Aroldis Chapman. We already mentioned Garrett Cole. We already mentioned Miguel Andujar. Those are 3 that I had on knots. I'm going to just leave those out for now. But the other 2 that I had outside of them, Jose Trevino over the last month, 0 walk rate, no walks for this guy. Doesn't like walking. Doesn't like running either, because when he gets hits, he's only at a 173 clip. OPS 385, negative 5.9 offensive WAR. What do you think about Jose Trevino?
I unfortunately kind of think he's regressing to the means, as we said before. Obviously, he's overcompensating for it, and he'll bounce back, I think, from those numbers. The walks I wasn't really aware of, and that's a little concerning. But yeah, he's not the all-star hitter we thought.
Yeah, man made an all-star team before. Marwin Gonzalez last month, 135 batting average, 535 OPS, negative 2.2 offensive WAR. But just for reference, it's not as bad as Jose Trevino.
Fair, but still, I don't see him on the playoff roster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be it. I mean, we already talked about, I have Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Cole, Frankie Montas, Andujar as just like a see you later, Andujar. Hope you do better in Pirate in the Pittsburgh type thing. But I think I know your feelings on Chapman. I think I know your feelings on. I mean, let's dive into this one a little more. More on Trevino, but before that, Frankie Montas. With all that being said, with Boone, him saying, it's tough time wise to get him into the playoff rotation, suggesting the opener / relief role. What is your take on that?
I think it's just him being honest about his injury.
No. I mean, what's your take on? Do you think that? Are you pumped? You think he'll be good in a relief / opener role? Like, what are your feelings towards that?
I don't feel good about him pitching any meaningful innings in October, but I'm glad they're not starting.
Okay, Murph.
I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, I
honestly,
I haven't
awesome.
felt confident watching him pitch once this whole year.
Thank God we traded for him then.
Like, not even a little bit.
At least we didn't give up a whole lot for him, though. But to be fair, I mean, you can't criticize the trade. We needed a pitcher, and he was the best name on the
he has
outside of
the least amount of earned runs, right, out of the 3 guys, which was a little surprising because I thought Montgomery was tearing it up.
The other 2 have 14 in 4 games, and he has 13. It's not like he's lighting it up.
Yeah, but it's not like I don't know. I feel like he could figure it out. It's just with the injury thing, like hopefully that's what it is in the offseason. He'll do well for him, and we'll have him for that next year. But
just like Joey Gallo, the offseason was going to get his head right for New York.
It's going to really show the Yankees fans.
I will say a glimmer of hope of Montas. His velo is down pretty significantly, so I don't think he was 100% healthy. Maybe that's part of it, but a lot of it to me was, I mean, not even to me, this is just a fact. A lot of it was location issues and stuff like that. So pitching behind it counts, walking batters. That could be an injury. It could not be. I don't know. So we'll see.
That could stem
that's
from the same thing that's taking his velo down, though.
That's what I'm saying, but it also could not. So
right.
that's a total wild card, but I'm trying to be positive.
Well, if you're also concerned with him not being, or the reasoning being him potentially not have been healthy at the time, certainly not healthy right now because he's not going to make the rotation because of timeline on his injury. So it's not going to be much better than he was before if injuries was the concern. But
the rotation wasn't the concern though. Right now, I feel like.
Well, he was saying not going to make the playoff rotation because of injury timeline, not because of who the pitcher is and the confidence in him and how he's been performing. So I'm saying, with that being said, with him coming back, he's going to be injured as well.
I'm just saying that, Herman's been pitching pretty well. Like, Sevy's back. He's pitching well. You can still put out a really good 3 because he hasn't
Yeah.
been the guy that you traded for anyway. So
Right. So I
you're not,
think
you're not really losing that much.
right. And I don't think they're
Herman's
going
been
to
throwing
be.
mainly out of the pen lately. No, he had one.
He's
start,
now
but I
back
think
in the
that was
rotation,
his-
though. He
I know,
was
but
coming out of the pen.
okay, that's what I was gonna say. So that was his first start since like September 3rd.
When
right?
Montas went to the IL, that's when he came back into the rotation.
Yeah, and I mean, Sevy's looked great so far. He's pitching tonight, so I don't want to speak too soon. But last time he pitched, he looked awesome. Went about 5 innings, so not sure how deep he's going to go into games because he probably can't be that built up. I'd expect probably around 5 innings max in the playoffs because it's considering they're going to start in like 10 games. So I don't know. I think regardless, yes, I think the reason why he even if he was fully healthy, he would not be in the rotation either way because of the way that Cole, Nestor, and Sevy. I mean, you don't have more than 3 starters anyway, unless you're in. Even if you are in a 7-game series, you really only have a 3-man rotation. So, yeah, I think his role would have been in the bullpen regardless of injury. More on Trevino. One thing that I wanted to also point out, regardless of the stats that I just mentioned and him not being like there at all offensively, his defense obviously it hasn't wavered, and that's been who he is as a guy. He's always been that guy. But one thing that I noticed is that like in terms of games played over the last 30 days, Trevino has 18 and Higashioka has 15. And in terms of the plate appearances, they're about even. So where do you see that working in? I mean, at this point, they're both just defensive catchers, which is exactly what we thought they would have been. But I mean, Trevino is a much better defensive catcher. And if you want to go by just the overall WAR again, I mean, we know that, but over the last 30 days, Jose Trevino has 4.2 defensive WAR versus Higgy's 2.5. So I don't know. What do you see them doing in the playoffs in terms of the catching situation?
I don't really think it's like a. I don't think it's.
I think it's
you-
Trevino
I don't
every
think
day.
I don't think you really change anything. Like I think you just kind of keep it the way it's going.
Yeah, you don't change because of a bad September, like any
Yeah.
position really.
Well, no, the bad September aside, I'm just saying in terms of the distribution of games played, it's been about even, but then the plate appearances as well.
Well, I don't know. I think it's going to be Trevino.
The answer should be Trevino. I mean, he's clearly been the better catcher. Not defensively. They're probably the same. Offensively, he's obviously been better than Higgy this whole year. You gotta play him. There's no. I don't really think there's a question about the catching situation. Like, I think they've been probably playing more or less the same amount of time because you're playing every day. You need the rest as a catcher, but coming in playoff time, you're gonna be getting like every other day rest. I don't think Higgy gets a lot of playing time in the playoffs. I don't think he should.
Hope so. I was just pointing out the tea leaves is where the distribution of games that were being played were at currently. Marwin, obvious sell, but yeah, I think we talked enough about that. But do you want to get into the stats that I pulled together?
Go off, King.
Let's do it.
So essentially what I did, and I teased it on the last episode, was, taking a look at what Judge has done this season and trying to put together, try to look at all of the best offensive seasons ever to be played, including guys like Babe Ruth, Rogers Hornsby, all kinds of stuff like that. And then just trying to, outside of WAR, which is the obvious way to describe who's playing a better season, I wanted to basically put it at a level playing field in terms of like how the MVP voters would vote and like the categories that they would look at and where they rank among those top 25 or so people that I pulled in this list. So that list includes Babe Ruth, Miggy Cabrera's Triple Crown year, Mark McGuire, Babe Ruth again, Barry Bonds again, like multiple of those seasons and just everything, Mickey Mantle, 1956, all that kind of stuff. So I took all of the categories and I basically gave you points for where you ranked among that top 25 people at each category. And if you were first, you got 25. So it's the inverse of the where you landed. So if you got, like, obviously I'm not going to give you 1 point. I'm summing up all of those rankings, if that makes sense. So like I said, if you ranked first in runs, you got 25. And then moreover, I took off all the categories: runs, home runs, extra base hits, RBIs, stolen bases, strikeout to walk ratio, batting average, OPS, OPS plus, and total bases. Those are all the stats that I chose as important stats to me in terms of measuring a good season. And then I wanted to take it one step further and assign weights to those. So which ones are more important to me? Those that are more important are home runs, RBIs, batting average, OPS, OPS plus. Those all got a weight of 2 versus 1 on the other side of the stolen bases and other stats like that. So then
Essentially, you just create your own war.
Kind of, but like this, I think is more interesting because you look at those specific categories and it's like, how would they fare if they all had these seasons simultaneously, and where the voters would vote in terms of the most impressive offensive season of all time. And, maybe it's similar to WAR, but it was a fun way to slice it up, and I thought it was cool. I just wanted to see where Judge ranked specifically against these players in their exact specific season. And when I looked at the numbers, it was kind of cool. Obviously, I wanted Judge to be high on this list, but any guesses to who had the best offensive season ever by this metric? And it is honestly, I was relieved when I saw the answer to this, because it proved that taking these stats the way I did, it proved the system was pretty correct.
You included the steroids.
Probably.
I included the steroid era.
Barry Bonds in 2004, huh?
Yeah.
No, it was not.
Not Bonds?
It was Bonds.
It was Babe Ruth in
Sosa?
1921. So by these numbers, Babe Ruth in 1921 had the best season. Then Lou Gehrig, Rogers Hornsby, Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, Hornsby, McGuire, Sosa, Mantle, then Judge is at 11, ahead of Ted Williams, Maris, Bonds, Cobb, and Miggy Cabrera, and then a bunch of other people. But yeah, I thought it was cool to point that out, is that he was 11 on the list of, and that's crazy, 11 on the list of all-time seasons ever played, regardless of whether they were against electricians and all that stuff that we talked about in that article that we broke down about 3 episodes ago, about, whether Judge doing this is more impressive because of, how much he's leading by for the next best guy, a 20 home run lead in that.
54 different pitchers he has home runs
Yeah,
off.
all of that and more on that if you want us to hear us break down why this specific season, outside of the stats, like the alternate reasons why it's more impressive. That's a couple episodes ago. We'll link it in the bio, but this is just plain on the stats, outside of, like you just mentioned, Murph, the amount of pitchers you faced, the uptick in velocity from pitchers, just all that kind of stuff, the amount starters go deep into games that doesn't happen anymore, all that kind of stuff. He ranks 11 on that. And then also, if you remove out, this is attempting to remove that kind of stuff, anybody post 1956, he ranks 4th among. So in terms of what we've seen recently, since 1956, he's had the 4th most impressive season based on this list. Number 1 this time around being Bonds in 2001. That's the year he hit 73 home runs. McGuire, Sosa, Aaron Judge, Roger Maris, Bonds again, Miggy Triple Crown, Bonds 04, and Frank Robinson in 1966. So it's cool. It's very cool. I just wanted to put it to a test to see, in recent memory, he's had the best season outside of the steroid era. So natural players, he's had the best season we've seen since 1956.
Yeah, that's insane.
What do you guys think about the ESPN cutting away college football to show us at bats? Because people are freaking the fuck out about that.
They can get over it. It's history.
So see, there's where I am. Like,
ESPN just can't win.
I just I don't really care. Like, if you want to get upset about it for if you don't care about baseball, fine. The only people that piss me off, I had a friend text me, was like, yeah, it's just because he's a Yankee. I was like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. Like, if you want to say that they shouldn't cut the baseball, fine, but don't tell me it's just because he's a Yankee. That's fucking stupid.
I think I don't really fucking care, but like, if I'm gonna take a side, I don't think they should do it. I don't think it's.
You don't think they should?
I mean, yeah, maybe throw in a little box or whatever.
I mean, like, if you're. I'm trying to look at a different perspective here. Like, if I'm watching a college football game on ESPN, like, I'm watching it because I want to watch that. I'm not watching it because I want to watch Aaron.
It's different.
I was
It's different audiences.
I was flipping
Like-
back and forth between the game last
Yeah,
night and
because
the
you want
Yankees
to see
game.
both. Yeah.
Well,
so I
yeah,
think of the
figure it
flip,
out.
yeah.
Kinda
Think of the
watch
flip
both.
side. Like if you don't give a shit about baseball at all, and college football is your only sport, and you're watching, a super intense game, and they're just cutting it away and showing the commentary for Yes Network, you'd be pretty pissed off.
So,
And
yeah,
vice
if
versa,
I-
if it's baseball to football, I'd be pissed. So I get it, but don't tell me it's just because he's a Yankee. That's my
Yeah,
only.
No, it's
I-
that's
because
my
of
only
it's
bugaboo.
because of all the things that I
He's
just
trying to
listed.
grow the
We're-
game of baseball, and he's the face of baseball, hitting 60 home runs.
Yeah,
So
quite
cut-
literally having the most impressive season since 1956. So
Dude, if I'm watching a Yankee game and cut to like Steph Curry breaking the 3-point record, I'd be pissed.
Oh,
I don't-
yeah,
I don't
something's
give
going
a-
through
I
my
don't give a
TV.
Fuck, like I'd rather just see that on fucking Twitter.
I
don't
guess that's a
care
good
about
that's a
Steph
good
Curry.
analogy because I wouldn't give a
Yeah.
fuck about that. Because I obviously we're all big baseball fans here, so we err on the side of like, yeah, that's crazy. If Bonds was going after 73, I would want
Yeah.
to see that cut in, but Steph Curry just did it, and I didn't give a fuck about that. So
Yeah, I could not care less.
yeah, so I guess that puts to bed that conversation because not one of us gives a shit about Steph Curry breaking a 3-point record. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I just thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, good job, Luke.
Thanks. It actually took a pretty long time to do this, so I'm glad you guys liked it. But I also wanted to slice it up against all of the most recent MVPs. So like the Donaldson MVP year and all that stuff to see just how much better he was than those guys. Because it's one thing to win MVP, which I evidently think he's going to do. That remains to be seen. We've said our piece on that versus Ohtani, but like. It's another thing, like everybody wins the MVP, but like which one's the more impressive MVP? And I think this alone tells you like the fact that he was right up there. And in terms of like the overall score that they received is based on those rankings, like I said, and multiplied by the weights. He was very close in terms of overall rankings to Bonds, McGuire, Sosa. And I mean, obviously this is heavily dependent on like home runs and stuff like that, but equally OPS and OPS plus, but it's just wild times. It's all of this. Every time we bring up something crazy, I feel like this season has been, different ways to slice up how historic this season is. But I just want to put it in perspective for what we've seen or haven't seen, because I was born in 1997. But like, I mean, Bonds 01, McGuire, Sosa 1998, 1999. Like that's not something we've seen for a very, very long time. And I mean, most recently, Miguel Cabrera in 2014. But I mean, Judge better than him. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff.
Fair.
Yeah, that's it for me. Does anybody else have anything else they
Go
No,
Yanks.
let's go Yanks.
Hopefully, by the
Let's
time
win
you're
the-
listening to this, we're AL East champions.
and
Yes,
Judge
sir.
has the home run record. So
I don't know about that.
that'll do it from us. One last thing that I wanted to say is I feel bad for the Maris family because one, the record is potentially going to get broken, but two, he picked the wrong time to go on a dry spell because they're just going to every single fucking game. Do you think they're out in Toronto tonight?
They are. They already showed him sitting like front row.
They are.
It's like
I
a
did-
world tour.
Yeah, like they're
I mean,
going.
they have to because
Dude,
they're gonna
I'm
do
sorry,
some kind of like
they get
tribute
free-
after he hits it. They're gonna have people on the field
I know,
and all that.
I know.
Shit, so
I
They
know
get
they're
free
I know
tickets to every game in like either a box or front row.
I know, but
until
they
he
don't
hits
got
it.
things
So
to
at this
do.
point, who cares?
They don't have
Clearly not.
what the fuck do they have to do? They're all like
Are they?
billionaires. Not actually, but I mean,
probably
your
not.
son is one of the best players, or grandson is
In
one of the best players of all
1961, he
time.
No,
got-
yeah.
I think they're old enough where they're all like retired. So
All right, I'm just
They
saying,
probably,
like,
they probably just have real jobs and they're just like,
No,
Plus
because,
have
like-
real jobs and take 2 weeks off to go do this, because wouldn't you?
I would as well. I'm just. These are all things that cross my mind. Is like
they're probably getting like complimentary tickets.
they absolutely are. I'm just saying they
Yeah.
got lives and like they're all probably getting breakfast at a hotel in Toronto this morning. Like, you think he's gonna fucking do it already? Like, I don't know.
I don't know how much
man,
more
I'm
free
trying.
baseball I can watch.
Yeah, I want to go
Sucks.
home, man.
You say, if you don't think they're well off, I mean, their son was one of the best baseball players of all time. Like, if they are
In
lacking
'61
somebody,
though,
yeah, but they can just be like, oh well,
his
here's one of
contract was
Rogers'
not.
old, like here's one of Rogers' old pairs of shoes. We can sell that and pay our mortgage for the next 10 years. So like,
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even that popular of a player. That was the whole thing that everybody gave him. Like, if you saw the movie '61, he got like death threats for breaking Babe Ruth's record because they wanted Mickey Mantle to do it, except he got hurt. And like nobody really not that nobody liked Maris, but nobody wanted him to be the one that broke it.
Mantle was the homegrown boy.
Exactly.
Can you imagine
And
being like upset if like I don't know, like Rizzo broke the record.
yeah,
Like, wouldn't that be like a wild? Thing
I
to
guess
just,
that would be the best example is like Judge is obviously that homegrown Mickey Mantle-esque player that the fans are all in love with. I mean, Rizzo obviously we are too, but like it's crazy. Like he literally got death threats. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a very good movie called 61. Accurately named. But yeah, it's just wild times. Anywho, that'll do it for us.